2019, in a homecoming of sorts, I started writing the stories of Malaysia. During a writing workshop in late 2019, I wrote what I thought was a throwaway homework assignment about a teenage girl struggling to get home before curfew, before Japanese soldiers stormed the streets. I remember the handwritten comments from the instructor. "Keep this precious thing close," she wrote, "and keep writing it." So, I did. I wrote through a global pandemic in my small apartment, through the premature death of my mother, through the deep loneliness of being unable to go home to Malaysia. I wrote about inherited pain, womanhood, mothers, daughters, and sisters, and how the choices we make reverberate through the generations of our families and communities in ways we often can't predict. I wrote about carrying the legacy of colonization in your body, about being drawn to a toxic man, about complicated friendships, about living a life in fragments, about the ambiguity of right and wrong when survival is at stake. That throwaway homework assignment is now the 4th chapter of my novel. I hope you enjoy the storm we made and how Cecily, Jujube, Abel, and Jasmine make their way in their world. I hope that you will feel love, wonder, sorrow, and joy as you listen. And mostly, I hope you will remember their stories. Thank you for listening. Yours, Vanessa. Chapter 1. Cecily. Bintang, Kuala Lumpur. February 1945. Japanese-occupied Malaya. Teenage boys had begun to disappear. The first boy Cecily heard of was one of the Chin brothers, the middle of 5 hulking boys with narrow foreheads and broad shoulders. They were Bun Hock, Bun Lam, Bun Kong, Bun Hee, and Bun Wai, but their mother called them all Abun, and it was up to the boys to know which one she was calling for. Throughout British rule, the Chin boys were known for being rich and cruel. It was common to see them crowding in a circle behind the Chin's gaudy brown and gold house. They'd be standing over a servant, one of the boys with a switch in his hand, and all the boys with glints of excitement in their eyes as the switch made contact with the servant's skin. When the Japanese arrived before Christmas 1941, the boys were defiant. They glared at the patrolling Kunpatai soldiers, spat at the ones who chose to approach. It was the middle boy, Bun Kong, who disappeared, just vanished one day as though he had never existed. Just like that, the 5 Chin brothers were 4. Cecily's neighbors wondered what had happened to the boy. Mrs. Tan speculated that he had just run away. Puan Azrin, always a cloud of gloom, worried that the boy had gotten into a fight and was lying in a drain somewhere, which made the neighbors peek fearfully into drains as they went about their errands, unsure what they would find. Other mothers shook their head. "That's what happens to bullies," they said. "Maybe someone had simply had enough." Cecily watched the Chin boy's mother, curious to see if Mrs. Chin was stationed by the door waiting for news, or if she performed the hysterics of the terrified mother. But Mrs. Chin and the rest of the Chin family kept to themselves. On the rare occasion they left their house, the 4 boys surrounded their gray-faced parents in an enormous wall of sinew and muscle, keeping them out of sight. Only once did Cecily encounter Mrs. Chin, very early in the morning at the sundry shop. Mrs. Chin was staring at a bag of squid snacks, face glistening with tears. Cecily marveled at the quietness of it all. No sobs, no shaking, just bright, damp cheeks and wet eyes. "She's been like that for 5 minutes now," said Auntie Mui, the shop owner's wife, delighting in being able to share her discovery with someone else. After a few weeks, because there were no further public displays of anguish, no other gossip to be gleaned, people stopped wondering about the Chin boys. Soon, the neighbors even forgot which Chin brother was missing. The next few disappearances came in quick succession. The thin boy who worked as a sweeper at the graveyard, who Cecily was convinced